Hey guys, coming at you today with a little experiment with a recipe I've been wanting to make for a long time, and I was planning on experimenting before I brought you the video, but as you know from maybe a previous video, I'm about out of the bakery and I have some stuff I need to use up, and I just so happen to have a bunch of Oreo cookie dough. So we're gonna make a keto Oreo lasagna. I'll throw a picture up here. I saw it on Facebook a while ago and I've been wanting to make it ever since. And we have all the elements, so it should be easy. Although if you saw my Snickers ice cream bar, you'll see that's not always the case. But hopefully today it won't go too horribly wrong. So let's get started. Okay, I wrote down the recipe real fast from the website. I'll link it here or in the description box if you want to make the regular version. But one package of Oreos, which I looked up, is $45. It used to be. Now it's $39 because they cut it down because of inflation. You crush it all up and you save a cup to decorate the top. Then you mix the rest with 6 tablespoons of butter. And then you mix 8 ounces of cream cheese with powdered sugar and 8 ounces of Cool Whip in this. And then you save 8 ounces for the top. And then you use a packet of instant pudding. So our recipe, unfortunately, this is a no-bake recipe. We have to make our Oreos. So one batch of my Oreos makes 8 Oreos. So I happen to have like a lot of Oreo dough. So I have 8, 16, 32. So this will make 32 cookies. And I have another half batch back there. So that's 40 cookies. So pretty close. But unfortunately we do have to roll this out, bake it, and then fill it with some buttercream frosting. But we're not going to make cookies because that's just pointless if we're going to crush them all up. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. And then I think 1 cup of powdered sugar plus how sweet Cool Whip is, that's kind of crazy to me. Probably was delicious back in the day, but now that my sweet tooth is lessened, it is going to be way too sweet at that much. So we're going to use 16 ounces of heavy cream. Put 60 grams, which is a half cup of powdered, into that to sweeten it. And then we're going to put half that into the 8 ounces of cream cheese. And we're put a little bit of stevia into this just to sweeten this up a little bit more. You can also just add some extra sweetener to this, just powdered sweetener. But I like to cut the sweeteners so that you don't have too much cooling effect. And then I have an instant chocolate pudding recipe. So we're going to make 1 batch of that. And that should be it. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so I have my 2 batches. I did use black cocoa for this. You can use black cocoa, obviously. I have my chocolate sandwich cookie recipe here. I remember the cookies being kind of a pain in the butt. You got to get them the right thickness and then cook them and then press them down. So what I'm going to do is do a double batch in a folded big piece of parchment paper. See how this goes. And then transfer it onto a half sheet. I already have my oven preheated to 350. See how this works. It's like a sandy dough. It's not really like a dough. I do have in the directions not to let it cool too much, so I'm wondering if I'm gonna have to like microwave this to warm up the coconut oil that's in it. But I feel like I used it straight out of the freezer last time and it was fine. See how this goes. I do it a little bit thicker still, so. Set 1/8 of an inch thick on my recipe. It doesn't really have to be perfect because we're just breaking this up after we cook it. So. As long as it's kind of like the right thickness all the way around. Maybe I should do this right on sheet pan. I think I might have. Like a small rolling pin would work good here because like this doesn't fit either way. A little bit more down here. It's pretty good, I think. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect because we're just breaking this all up anyways. So it says to only cook it for 7 minutes. Fortunately, I have to do this all again. Then we're gonna put some buttercream frosting in between and break it all up. We'll be back. This is the only hard part, hopefully. Okay, so this is what it looks like when it comes out. It's still really soft. So it doesn't get hard until it's cool. If your hands can handle it, push it down with your hands. Otherwise, use a towel or something else to roll it. Well, nice and flattened, like it's crispy. That looks pretty good. Okay, got all these cool. And then we're gonna fill them with some buttercream that I already have made. I got my pan ready. It goes in a 9x13. It didn't say anything about lining it, but this is just gonna make it a lot easier, I think. So I lined my 9x13. I got my keto buttercream here. This is the same recipe that I used for the Oreo filling, only I didn't put gelatin in it. Because it really doesn't matter if the frosting spills out or anything, because we're just crushing all this stuff up anyways. So it's just a vanilla buttercream, vanilla, butter, powdered sweetener, and that's it. So we're just going to do a thin layer. We got some more over here. Oh, this one's still a little hard. And apparently this cookie's still a little warm. So it doesn't really matter, because putting more cookie on and crushing it all up. All this will be a lot easier for you because you're going to make this all fresh. I had this all sitting in my refrigerator and freezer, and your buttercream will be nice and soft, so will your dough. I'll figure out how much filling you're going to need by multiplying my old Oreo recipe. I put cold buttercream on top of warm buttercream. All yours is going to be nice and whipped up. I also did not figure out what the macros will be on this yet. I'd say it's good enough. Yeah, this is just going to break anyways, so... There we go. That's one way to do it. Smush this all together. I guess we can put it in the fridge to, like, I don't know, chill for a minute before we smash it into pieces. Okay, so I kind of got everything staged while I'm waiting for my cookies to get really stiff in there. Got my 1 block of cream cheese here. This is the 2 cups or 16 ounces of heavy cream. 60 grams of the powdered sweetener, a little bit of vanilla. I did realize we're gonna have to make stabilized whipped cream because half of this is going on top and half is going into here. That's my 2 cups, 1 cup heavy cream, 1 cup alternative milk for my instant pudding. We're gonna have to get our gelatin bloomed into here. And these are the dry ingredients I'm gonna need for my pudding. I need, everything will be up on the screen. Powdered sweetener, cocoa powder, xanthan gum, a little bit of salt. That's ready to go. And then I have 6 tablespoons of butter here that we're going to melt to combine with our Oreo crumbs to make our crust. I'm going to put 1 teaspoon of vanilla into our milk. Then we need our gelatin. Only 1 teaspoon for the instant pudding. Do 2 for stabilized whipped cream. Okay, all that's ready to go. And melted our butter. I got a baggie here to put our Oreos in to crush them up. Giant Oreo. Almost feels wrong. That's probably gonna be enough for this bag. I don't think we're gonna be able to put more in here. It's funny, you do this doing keto and you're like, this is weird, but people do this all the time with regular Oreos. Let's do a little rolly on here with a rolling pin. So this is supposed to be 32 Oreos. That's crazy. I don't think we're gonna need to do all that. Mash of cookies in there. It's kind of redundant adding more butter to buttercream also, but yes, we do want these to stick together pretty well, so I guess we'll do it. Should I put them in a bowl? More dirty dishes for me. Now, how much buttercream is left in there? I also put them in a food processor, it said, but I'd definitely put them into the freezer first if you're gonna do that. I feel like that's enough for a 9x13. You can just do it by hand too. Those aren't really hard. Fresh baked Oreos. Add in some butter. This is basically just to harden it even more, so it's like stays as a solid crust kind of thing. It looks like a mess. It looks like the most appetizing thing in the world right now. Add it into a crust. It's probably gonna taste delicious. I mean, friggin' butter, Oreos, chocolate, buttercream. Can't taste bad. Okay, that looks like a pretty good crust. So we'll save that for on top, I guess. We'll put that back in the fridge. Onto the cream cheese layer. This is gonna chill in the fridge while we do that. I didn't use quite all the butter. Probably like 4 tablespoons, not 6. Okay, we first are gonna make stabilized whipped cream. So this to soft peaks. Melt that one. Sometimes if I see there's chunks in it, I'll get those out. That sweetness is good for me for the topping. Now I might need to add a little bit of stevia to this, or more powdered sweetener if you want. I whipped up the cream cheese a tiny bit already, so 8 ounces whipped cream into here. We're gonna whip that up. I feel like you could put crushed Oreos in every layer too if you want to. Basically, you're making like a faux mousse or a no-bake cheesecake here. This is kind of how I do my peanut butter and pumpkin mousse. I was surprised when I read the recipe and it said only 1 block of cream cheese. Very cream cheesy. I need a little bit more sweetener. It literally just tastes like straight cream cheese. It's better. Now this goes on the base layer. I'm going to turn on our milk mixture. Keep an eye on it. Don't let it overflow. And get a whisk in here ready to go. After this goes on, I'm going to throw it into the freezer. Yeah, I feel like I would do more cream cheese. It's almost like barely a layer on there. I followed the instructions. Putting that into the freezer, and then we're gonna make the pudding layer next. Okay, I waited a little bit. I turned this off because I don't want that layer to like melt how hot my pudding is. Pudding gets really thick really fast, so I'm just worried about putting it on the lasagna still really warm. So I just put the gelatin in there, let that dissolve. It's at like 150 right now. It did come to a boil though. I'm ready with another spatula. As long as all the gelatin's dissolved. I feel like I remember this getting really thick really fast, but it's been a long time since I made this recipe. Maybe not. I'm gonna let it cool for a little bit before we pour it on. Just keep an eye on it, keep stirring it. It's thick enough to spread. It cools down. You know, if you let it sit, it will form a skin, so you don't want that to happen. Just gonna keep stirring this, letting it cool down to hopefully like under 100, I think would be a good idea. And then we'll put it on top of the lasagna. Okay, it's been quite a while and it's still pretty runny, but it's still at almost 90, so I'm hoping this is gonna set up. It makes me worried because I feel like, see, I should watch my videos back. It got thick really quick when I poured it into individual ramekins. We're gonna pour this on top of our cream cheese layer. Hopefully it'll set up and then we can top it with whipped cream. Since I have a bunch of Oreo cookies, I'm gonna break up this on top of the cream cheese layer, then put the pudding on, and then the whipped cream, and then more cookies on top. Might as well. That way it makes the macros easier to figure out, because otherwise I'm gonna have to figure out partial batches of Oreo. I have a feeling I'm going to cut these into very small pieces because it's going to be a pretty full pan here. And I really hope this layer sets up. I'm a little worried. Recheck my 1 teaspoon, 1.5 teaspoons cold water, half teaspoon, 1 cup, 1 cup. Okay. Guess we could have done a double batch of pudding. That's another reason I wanted to add the Oreos in. Didn't look like it was going to be a lot to cover. Make sure we're in all the corners, I guess. Refrigerate until set, and then top with whipped cream. Okay, well, the lasagna seems to be 40 degrees, so that's done. I'm going to whip this up a little bit more. It gets really stiff because of the gelatin, so hopefully we can get a little bit fluffier. I don't know. Might have to make more whipped cream. Might have to do that in 2 stages next time. Started freezing around the edges. I had it in the freezer. Pudding didn't exactly set, even though it's 40. But because it's such a thin layer, I think we're going to be fine. Might be a little bit oozy. That might be the problem people are having with different gelatins. And dollop a little bit over everything. Try to spread it out. Probably could pipe it. Probably be easier. I thought about that afterwards. I don't think we have enough to pipe. either. Had a customer come in, so I don't know how this is going to turn out now. It's going to be like a chocolate whipped cream on top, I guess. Everything's always more difficult when it's keto, right? Time to top it with some Oreos. Like I said, no matter what, it's still going to taste good, right? Chop up some Oreos. I'm going to say you can go with 4 batches of my Oreo dough, because there's a lot of Oreos in there. Kind of crazy. Hey, I'm going to let this chill overnight, and we'll slice into it tomorrow. Hopefully it'll be sliceable. Okay, so it's the next day, and I just sat down and figured out the macros for this Oreo lasagna, which, keto Oreo lasagna, but it is still pretty high in carbs. And I had a feeling that was going to be the case. This dessert is decadent. It is something for a special occasion, a holiday, a birthday, something like that. I just kind of wanted to make something that looked completely ridiculous. You can obviously, I figured it out with cutting down my Oreo recipe to only 4 times, not 5. I think 5 is just ridiculous. So my Oreos probably are a little bit bigger than the Oreos that come in the package. So with that being said, if we cut this lasagna into 15 pieces, it's 5 net carbs per slice, which is still kind of high, and it's really high in sugar alcohols because we use powdered sweetener in like every single layer. And yeah, so the total carbs are really high even for it, and the calories are ridiculous because we're using 3 cups of heavy cream in the whole thing, and a ton of butter in the frosting and the Oreos, and melted butter. So this is definitely a special occasion kind of dessert. But that being said, it's probably going to be really good. So let's get it sliced, and I want to try a piece of this. Hey, here it is in all its glory. Now, if you cut this into 20, which you probably could get away with because it is thick, like it's a full pan, it's only 3 net carbs. So, especially if you're having other desserts that day. So we're doing this 3 by 5 for the case, which makes it actually, I think, 6 net carbs with this because I did 5 times the Oreos. So it's 9. So 3, 3, and 3 here. I have a feeling this is going to be not easy to cut. It did say to freeze it for 30 minutes if you wanted to get a good cut on it. So I may have to do that. I mentioned it's like 8:30 in the morning, so I probably shouldn't eat this right now either. I have a hot water and knife here because I figured it'd probably be the best way to cut into this guy. The bottom layer is definitely going to be solid because it's butter and cookies. I'm just worried about our pudding layer didn't really set too well. If you think that's going to be the case, add a tiny bit more gelatin before it cools down. Would be my best advice. And all gelatin acts differently, so. Now by 5. 2.6. That's fun. It's 2.5. So, right there. So, if you did it by 20, it'd probably be like here, because we'd be doing it by 4, so 5 by 4. So, that big for 3 nut carbs. So, that probably wouldn't be too bad, just a little taste of dessert. Be back when it's nice and chilled. Okay, let's see if the freezer worked. This guy out of here. Looks kind of like lasagna. Yeah, see, way too much Oreo at the bottom. I'm thinking you can get this net carb count down a little bit. That's what it looks like inside. It looks like lasagna. And it is time to take a bite out of this guy. Sure, it'll be delicious. And apparently I wasn't recording. The whole time I was taking bites of this. Well, that's what it looks like. It looks like a lasagna. Crust is definitely too thick. I would use like half the amount of cookies that I did. And I think the cream cheese layer and the pudding layer need to be thicker too. But pretty good. Can't go wrong with all these things together. Definitely pudding and cream cheese in there, and the whipped cream. I just think the ratios are off in that recipe. I used the same kind of like layer for the cream cheese, like that was what they put in their recipe. In the picture of the lasagna, cream cheese layer was much thicker than this, so I don't know. And same thing with the Cool Whip on top. Like it was barely enough to cover the top. I'll have to remake this again, but if you want to try it yourself, let me know in the comments below if you do and how it turns out. I do have a chocolate cream pie recipe. I'll link it up there for you. I use that as the pudding filling, the pudding layer. It's delicious and it's like nice and stiff and it's like mousse-like. That'd be really good. Still didn't eat the whole thing. It is delicious. Very decadent. You can definitely eat a small piece of that and be satisfied. So I hope you guys enjoy this recipe or this little recipe experiment. Like I said, let me know in the comments below if you try it. There's really no way you can go wrong. Even if you just flop it onto a plate as a parfait instead of a lasagna, it'll still be good. Don't forget to check out my Amazon links and the blog link to the full recipe in the description box below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And as always, I'll be back with many more keto dessert recipes. Bye guys.